So I'd like to welcome everybody to the Transportation Committee meeting today at 6 o'clock. And as usual, we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So the first item on the agenda would be the roll call.
Councilmember Dobby?
Here.
Councilmember Stephen? Here. John Ruggiero?
Here.
Herb Erickson? Larry Sweeney?
Here.
Joan Solari?
The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the March 13th meeting. Do I have any additions or changes to those minutes? Can I have a vote to approve them?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any committee reports? Public comments and correspondence for items not on this agenda. Do we have any public comments?
Can I make a public comment?
Sure.
From here?
Yeah, I don't know why not.
My wife, Virginia, and I, basically, she researched these traffic logic items that you people are maybe aware of. The people aren't all aware of these handbooks I can give out. But I'd like to possibly not discuss it tonight, but make sure we get it on the agenda next time.
It is on the agenda.
It is next time? Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I don't believe we have any presentations, so we'll then go to the agenda for this evening. And the first item on the agenda is a discussion and possible action to consider installation of roundabouts at the intersection of Alameda de la Pulgas and Atherton Avenue. Are you ready?
Yes, thank you. So my name is Gary Lauder. I'm a venture capitalist and an Atherton resident who have been fascinated with traffic patterns and how to improve them for many years. I have no formal training in the field, but that doesn't mean that I'm wrong, since I thoroughly researched this, talked to lots of experts and so forth. And international travel has shown I and other Athertonians what's possible elsewhere with roundabouts. And the California Department of Transportation is enthusiastic about them, as are most other states' Department of Transportations. So why me? Well, who else? The problem is persisting, and it doesn't seem to be being solved. So first I'm going to address the nature and extent of the problem. It affects thousands of people each day at that intersection. And the purpose of doing this is to primarily avoid time wastage, and since time is money, it's a hidden tax. It's better for the environment to have a roundabout, better fuel efficiency, which is another form of tax. There are geopolitical implications of less fuel use. It's safer to have roundabouts, and I'd like to see this create a model to be imitated elsewhere. So this is from Google Maps. It is showing the traffic backup southbound on Alameda at 8:30 a.m. And let me just get out my little laser pointer. For those of you not familiar, the red line is very slow, and you can see that's where the backup is there. The colors don't come out as well on the projector. And then at 5:40 p.m. last week, you can see the backup going there all the way back to Camino a los Cerros. So the main problem is rush hour congestion. I measured when I did some measurements in preparation for this presentation about 15 months ago. I measured that it took 4.5 minutes to get through northbound at 5:30, which was an 1,800-foot jam, and compared to the speed limit, by the way, that was to Camino al Lago, which, for those of you not familiar, that's Camino al Lago, and this is Camino a los Cerros. So it was to there that I measured 1,800 feet. That's even further. Compared to the speed limit, that means a delay of 3.8 minutes per car. There were 56 cars in the jam, so that's there were about 750 cars per hour to get through at a rate of 12.5 cars per minute. And so the cost of that lost time, just during the jam, assuming the jam only lasts 1 hour, is 3.8 minutes per car lost time, 750 cars per hour, that's 48 car hours per hour of jam, which with 1.2 occupants per car, that's 57 person hours per hour of jam, times the average wage in the USA is $1,145 per hour of opportunity cost lost. 260 delay hours per year, in other words, 260 work days per year, means $297,000 per year per direction, assuming that the jam's only 1 hour. At times two directions, that's almost $600,000 per year of opportunity cost just during the jam. In last year's presentation, I did not calculate another cost of the existing intersection, which is if there are about 7,000 cars per day that flow through it, and if you subtract the 1,500 cars that were in the prior calculation, you get 5,500. So each when you stop at a stop sign and then accelerate, that costs about 10 seconds each, which seems like it's not very much, but when you multiply it by the 7,000 cars per day that go through there, it's 5.5 thousand hours per year, which is the equivalent of $111,000 of opportunity cost of time lost. And when you add that to the prior page's calculation, you come up with a total of $707,000, assuming only one person per car on this side of the equation. So each year wastes the equivalent of 8.5 person years. It's in Steve Jobs' biography, there's an interesting story told. When he was trying to get somebody to reduce the time it takes to start up the computer, they said it can't be done. And he said, if someone's life depended on it, could you do it? And they said, what do you mean? And he multiplied that time starting up the computer times the number of computers times the number of times it happens, and it adds up to lifetimes. And so they went back, and lo and behold, they could actually reduce the number of seconds it takes to start up the computer, and as a result, we all have a few more seconds in our day as a result of that kind of thought process. So I just think it's analogous here. So anyway, getting back to the direct cost, the cost of gas from 7,000 cars per day accelerating from a full stop, it uses 2 ounces of gas, 5 cents to accelerate, times 7,000 cars per day, that's $350 per day, $127,000 per year, and that's just the gasoline cost. And then there's also the cost of pollution and the wear and tear on the car. And so, and when you add that to the cost of the lost time from the prior page, that's $835,000 per year. And by the way, this form of calculating the costs is not something that I came up with. In the footnotes to this, which I'm happy to make available, this is done by city planners elsewhere. So the present value of that annuity, discounted at 5%, is $16 million. So that's the present value of all that lost time and gas. So why have people not complained? Why would people complain if they couldn't imagine a solution? I mean, it's unless you can think of a way to improve it, people generally will keep their mouth shut. And even then, thinking of it isn't the same as actually trying to get it done, as is the case in life. So also, there are not enough roundabouts here in the Bay Area for people to even realize that it's a solution. I should say that there's, according to a database I looked up, there's no roundabouts in San Francisco County nor San Mateo County, and there's one in Cupertino County. So, although there are about 3,000 in America, and there are probably about over 100,000 in Europe. So it's a known solution. And in fact, this book, which came out in 1989, titled "A Toolbox for Alleviating Traffic Congestion." That's the cover up on the screen. This doesn't even mention the word roundabout, and it's just not has not been part of America's traffic planning until fairly lately. So the traffic lights and stop signs are much less safe. And a study that the Insurance Institute of Highway Safety did, they studied 24 intersections, some of which were traffic lights, some of which were stop signs, that were converted to roundabouts so they could compare the before and after safety. And crashes dropped 40%, injury crashes dropped 76%, and fatal crashes dropped 90%. The main reasons were slower speeds going through the lower angles of incidents. When cars collided, it was at a narrower angle, and there were fewer points of conflict. And this shows visually. On the left, you can see a four-way intersection, and these are all the different places where the cars can collide with each other. And this is a roundabout showing many fewer points of collision. So roundabout capacity, I mean, basically the underlying premise behind a roundabout solving this problem is that more cars can get through, and therefore it would eliminate the queue. So the capacity per hour of roundabouts is typically 1,200 cars per direction, minus the cars that turn left in the opposite direction. And at this intersection, very few cars turn left, so it's reasonable to assume that you could get close to 1,200. That's an improvement of about 50% over the existing throughput, so I believe it would eliminate the queue. So the cost of doing so depends on the type of roundabout. There's a new kind of roundabout called a mini roundabout, which can cost as little as $50,000. The standard cost, however, is about $100,000. And there are some roundabouts that have cost millions of dollars, but those are typically part of a freeway on-ramp, off-ramp, or some other very large-scale construction that's not applicable to this discussion. If a standard roundabout were used, it might require some adjacent corner of the land outside the fence, but I don't think that's necessary. Even if only 10% of the people inconvenienced by this traffic jam are Atherton residents, it's still worth it given the cost that the existing situation imposes on them. So some other issues, the one thing that has been a major source of complaints in town is shortcuts to go around congestion. On Polhemus, there's a radar camera which I infer must have been put there, a radar sign, which I infer must have been put there for people speeding down the street, trying to avoid that southbound delay. And anyway, so that was also obviously a problem at Holbrook. So this should alleviate the underlying congestion. Another issue is whether it would shift the jam elsewhere. The answer is it's got to be better after the fact, although it's possible that there will be queuing elsewhere in the system, but one can only address one queue at a time. And so I don't think it would be a zero sum. I believe that there would be tremendous improvement. So my recommendation is to do a traffic study to quantify the extent of the problem, and then, assuming that it's warranted, to retain an expert on roundabouts to opine. That's it. Any questions?
Committee, go ahead.
Thank you. It's a very thorough study, and I don't dispute any of the things that you've said. I think my only concern or question is, and you addressed it, but your information was very different from the information that we've received every time we've looked at this issue, and that was costs. The costs that we've been given for roundabout at that specific location, and we've been told this several times now over the past year and a half, is about $1 million.
It was about, I think the last time we looked at it, which was at the junction, I believe, of either Polhemus or Stockbridge, and I think we ended up with certainly $500,000 for the roundabout, but also certain amounts of private land would have to be confiscated because we didn't have enough room with the land we own to put that roundabout in. So that was it was a very large amount of money. And to be honest, after we considered it, we didn't seem to get a lot of public response saying we gotta have it.
And I wish Irv was here, because his son is a civil engineer for one of the towns, and he came back and said that the estimate that we received was too low. That he had done these roundabouts, and it was actually higher than the estimate we received. So I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm just saying that clearly we do need better information.
Yes.
Because we're getting
Well,
information that is showing this is across the board, and your data with regard to pollution and accidents and traffic flow is too cogent not to warrant us finding out what the real numbers are.
I appreciate that. There have been a number of published studies about the costs of roundabouts, and so the numbers that you're saying do seem high and inconsistent with that, given the nature of them. I talked at length with Duncan Jones about this, and he believed that it could be inscribed in the area without having to use adjacent land. The costs of mini roundabouts, which were probably not under consideration in the information that you got, are substantially less. Is Mike here? Oh, there you are. Sorry, I didn't say hi. Mike, would you like to talk about some of your prior experience with roundabouts and what your...
We should sort of address the chairman when we talk here, and I would like to have the committee's opinions before.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Turn it over to the public.
Yes, okay.
I thought you were asking if I had questions. I do have some comments.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
Okay. By coincidence, my wife and I vacationed a week ago in Sedona for a week, and they have on State Route in Arizona, State Route 89A and State Route 179, put in 16 roundabouts. In many cases, they've replaced four-way stops and they have replaced traffic lights. And these are these mini roundabouts. Some of them are two-lane roundabouts. The one what we're talking about here is a one-lane roundabout. I've contacted a person I used to work with at Arizona DOT, and he's getting me some cost information on their specific roundabouts, what they put in. Now, I'd like to point out their roundabouts are really very nice, and they have had an art competition for the art that will be placed in the center of these and the landscaping and all of that, which may tend to run up the cost beyond what we need. But in some web research as a result of our visit to Sedona, and I would like to say my wife's and the other couple we were with experience in driving through the roundabouts was very good. It took us little time to learn the rules, learn to adjust to them, and they really work extremely well. But my research online as to costs, the costs range from $40,000 to $400,000, depending upon whether it's one lane, two lane, and how elaborate you make it. Now, what we're talking about here is really quite a small one, a simple one. So I think it would be expected to be at the low end of the range. And in general, they cost less than a traffic light at the same location.
John, do you have any comments?
Well, my wife and I are researching this traffic logic. They seem to have a small type that could be temporarily put in and to test it. And I don't know the prices of these, but they're much cheaper than the permanently installed ones. And this traffic logic company has all types of these calming devices. There's some in Redwood City on the street there off of Alameda, and Hayward has a lot of them. I'm not sure they have all roundabouts, but the traffic calming devices they put out are very good ideas, and I've never seen these before. But the roundabout, it seems to be the easy part about it. It's installed by your own municipality can be put in, taken out, as all of them are, and the price can't be too much, and a test would be possible.
Thanks, John. I would say that I like roundabouts personally because having been brought up in Britain, going there regularly, they're all over the place there. And I think they're a really good idea. But it seems to me the last time we discussed this, there were also some legal problems that were brought up. Mike, can you remember that as far as the amount of space that was needed? And according, I think there was some, maybe the police had some ideas in it.
Not at Atherton Avenue. Duncan always insisted that there was enough room at that location. Duncan always said there was enough space.
Okay.
I did speak with Duncan, and he gave me some of the background of some of the work that he did. And as far as the question of whether or not it fits, I mean, he drew up a diagram, which even he admitted it's a little bit above, just one step above kind of the back of the envelope diagram. So I think as far as whether or not a conventional roundabout would truly fit, I think really to get the answer to that is to go out and do a survey and then have it properly designed to see if it fits. I'm not aware of any legal issues with roundabouts. And I think at the last meeting, one of your commissioners spoke of his son, and I believe he worked with Caltrans, and the roundabout, he was talking about Caltrans roundabouts, and you know, like for instance, off of Highway 80 near Squaw Valley, at 89, there's a roundabout there. As far as the cost, you know, for the roundabouts, you know, my belief is it really varies by location. And also it varies by, in the center, you know, if it's just a plain concrete with nothing inside, or, you know, how elaborate you want to landscape it. But when I say it's going to vary by locations, because it really depends on if there's utilities to be relocated. Because if you think about it, really all a roundabout is concrete. It's basically having it properly designed, having some raised concrete to properly channelize the cars around the roundabout, and of course you need a certain physical area in order to do this. And so to me the cost is really going to vary, and I think it varies by location. And you know, my experience with it is that I do agree in most cases that they are less expensive than a conventional signalized intersection. But in many cases, they take more room than a conventional intersection. And so for the particular location of Atherton and Alameda, to me the biggest question is getting in there and not just taking an aerial photograph with questionable scaling and drawing some circles around it. It's really to do it properly, is to go out and have a consultant who knows and understands the proper design, and have them laid out to make sure that, you know, to see if it truly would fit. And based on that, come up with a cost estimate. But assuming there is no right-of-way necessary, assuming that there is no major relocations of utilities, power poles, etc., for a roundabout in that area, my guess would be that it would be in the $200,000 to $400,000 range.
One of the things that I think I would like to ask John Ruggiero to explore is this traffic circle, which can be bolted down. And I don't know what it costs, but I think it would be good, John, if you could find out. These are things that you can put down in the street, you know, bolt them down to the street, see how they work. And then if they don't work, you can pull them up and you haven't wasted a lot of money. And at least it would be maybe good to, as a trial for the roundabout or something like this. So,
Mike, are you familiar with these?
I know, but the one thing I want to
the chief too.
just kind of also cover is that there's traffic circles, which is just basically circles, okay, and a roundabout. These are two different things. A traffic circle, the purpose of a traffic circle is to basically slow down traffic. It is a traffic calming device. The purpose of a roundabout is it really truly does take the place of a traffic signal. So the purpose of a roundabout is to regulate traffic as opposed to just slowing it down. And so that's why and you see a lot of traffic circles, and we did on another item here, we'll report out that we did talk, and we went out and took a look at locations in Redwood City. And in Redwood City, they do quite a bit of traffic calming in their neighborhoods, where in a lot of areas they have the traffic circles. And again, these are just concrete circles that are right in the middle of the intersection. The intent is basically to slow cars down so they go around it. But again, it is not a roundabout, because the elements of a roundabout that's different than a simple circle is, in addition to the circle in the middle of the street, you have to have something in the lanes that deflect or direct the traffic around the circles, and the whole intent of that is to slow the traffic down. Mr. Lauder spoke of these mini roundabouts, and we also provided me with some information on them. To be honest, I have not had the opportunity to look at them in great extent, but in a little bit of research that I've been able to do, we found that yes, they do exist. We're trying to find locations where they've been used in public streets. I know there are some, but a lot of the locations where we've seen they're more on private property. As an example, probably the closest one physically here is on the UC Davis campus, University of California, Davis. And there is one on the UC Davis campus. Within the campus, what I don't know is the location. Is it like a pretty major intersection like Atherton and Alameda, as opposed to more internal circulation on a college campus?
I don't disagree with you necessarily, but it seems to me, and also based on my experience in Europe, that you do get traffic circles like this that are just basically a slightly raised portion of the road, and that people generally don't drive over them. So therefore, they do exactly the same job, as a roundabout. I mean, if people go around them, they do the same job as a roundabout, and of course people could drive over them, but I don't think most people do. So I think it still would be worthwhile to maybe look at this as a trial. Anyway, yeah.
Can I just address, if a mini roundabout were to be done, this would be very useful as a central island for a mini roundabout.
Go ahead.
I'm Alan Austin, my wife Mary Ann, and we had submitted a letter and a petition that I think probably gave rise to this. We live just one block from the Alameda on Polhemus, so we drive through that intersection of Atherton Avenue and the Alameda every day, both directions. And we've been living there for 21 years, and the traffic's been terrible the whole time. If anything, it's worse. As we pointed out, it also makes traffic worse other places because a lot of people veer off and drive through the neighborhoods, often rushing because they're trying to get around that traffic jam and so on. And it's really just a couple hours a day, one in the morning and in the afternoon. Every year, every time I've driven through there, I always think, gee, this is so silly. Why can't this be fixed? Why shouldn't there be a stoplight that just runs part of the time? Or shouldn't there be something that solves this problem? Because it's such an inconvenience for everyone in the neighborhood. We did a little petition among our neighbors and had no trouble at all, 25 people, and we heard all kinds of stories of people saying, gee, this is such a pain trying to get to work, trying to take my kids to school, older teenagers trying to drive themselves to high school and had trouble. One young mother said that she had trouble getting kids to go over for play dates because their parents didn't want to drive them through that whole traffic snarl at that time of the day. So it's just kind of silly the way it is, and particularly when you consider that there are very few cars on Atherton Avenue. I mean, the whole thing is because everybody going down the Alameda has to stop, even though there's no real reason to stop because there's rarely anybody coming the other way on Atherton Avenue. So I'm no expert on roundabouts. I don't know if roundabout is the right answer, or if a traffic light that's only operable part of the time, or whatever. But there ought to be something done about it, and I hope you will study it to see. The only other comment I'd make, if you drive through the intersection, you'll see it's an unusually generous amount of space. It's not a typical intersection. There's a lot of space around the corners that are part of the city property or the public property. So I don't know if there's room or not, but it certainly looks like there ought to be room as you drive through there.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I'm Mary Ann Weston, and I'll just add one or two things. Someone mentioned the roundabout area at Tahoe off of 80 on Route 89 on the way to Squaw Valley. That has just made a tremendous improvement. It used to be that the traffic backed up all the time, getting off 80, getting on 80. There is never a backup now. So whoever designed that, I thought it was kind of crazy when it all started. And that, of course, is a much bigger deal because it's 2 lane and, whatever. But it certainly did take care of the traffic problems. What we're really talking about here is our neighborhoods. We all love living in Atherton, knowing our neighbors, going back and forth to our neighbors, taking our kids to local schools. And it really diminishes the pleasure when you start your day, first of all, trying to turn left off of Bohemus onto the Alameda, which can be several minutes, before you're even in the backup that takes several minutes, and you're just like this, right at the start of the day. And then also the end of the day, people coming to our house, whatever, people are just, do I have to come to your house? This isn't the community we want. I was doing a little research after some things Gary had shared, and I'm from Indiana. I'm from small town Indiana, and I was reading about Carmel, Indiana. I'm not really familiar with Carmel, but it's near Indianapolis. And according to a number of magazines, is one of the voted one of the top 14 places to live in the U.S. It's a town apparently of about 89,000, and it apparently has done a lot, just as you were saying, in Sedona, done a lot with roundabouts. So I think really what we're talking about here is, let's bring it back to the community and trying to continue to make this as good a place to live as possible. And I got 25 signatures of people. People were very enthused about looking into this. Everybody would be so pleased if there were something. I understand we don't have all the money to do everything in the world, but if there were some improvement that we could do, I don't know, if there was some suggestion at one point that maybe there is federal money, maybe there is some kind of highway money available too. That hasn't been mentioned today, but that could help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I add something? With respect to Carmel, Indiana, this is a map on the screen of Carmel, Indiana, and each of the dots, the yellow dots and are, I think, existing roundabouts, and the red ones are proposed. And they've replaced every single traffic light in their town with roundabouts, except for one, which was the first automatic traffic light in America. And also didn't have room for a roundabout. But anyway, they've been extremely successful everywhere they've gone, and this town has gone, basically whole hog. So I just thought that was an interesting background.
This gentleman here, get to everybody, don't worry.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jim Woody. I'm a physician and a venture capitalist and an Atherton resident. And I've been stuck in the traffic jam at this intersection, and I have to admit from time to time going through residential areas nearby to avoid it, just because you don't want to sit there for 5 or 7 or 8 minutes. I support Gary's proposal. That makes a lot of sense to me. The analysis makes a lot of sense. I have a unique experience, and I lived in the UK for 5 years, both in London and outside, and there's a wide range of roundabouts there, small in smaller sections and large as you can see. Efficient, safe, less noise, no pollution, and no maintenance. So I'm enthusiastic about his proposal and would like to see him do this. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Peter Harris, and my family and I have been residents in Atherton for more than 20 years. We too live on Pohemus, and I'm here to speak in strong support of the proposed traffic circle or roundabout. We have a need. It is clear there is a problem. It is a problem that impacts the lives of many and to a great degree diminishes the quality of our neighborhoods. I think I speak broadly for the community in suggesting that there is active support and little resistance to this idea. This is the ideal solution. I have great respect for Mr. Lauder's research and the kinds of things that he has surfaced to include the examples. And I think we see here a recognition that we have a situation that we can do something about and we need to do something about. This is the smart thing to do. This is the efficient thing to do. This is the environmentally correct thing to do. This is a model that I think will reflect on many communities, an active recognition of a problem and doing something about it. And I would speak in aggressive support, strong support of the proposed study.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Bob Macklin. I actually live not 1 but 2 blocks away. I'm actually on Marymount Ave. And we've been there for 15 years. Just as a way of my personal background that might be relevant, my undergrad